Okay. Good morning and welcome to Design Science Association, February 27th, 2021. We're glad you could join us this morning as we live stream a meeting with J.D. Mitchell, and he's going to give us a sneak peek at the new Dinosaur and Fossil Museum scheduled to open at Mount St. Helens Creation Center later in 2021. So JD will provide a glimpse of the numerous displays of fossils, replicas, and artifacts that will interpret the Earth's rock record, consistent with the historical narrative of the Bible. The plans for the layout of the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum inside of the center will also be revealed. This is designed to complement the other existing and future creation displays at the center in Castle Rock, Washington. The intention is that the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum will prove to be another incentive to draw people to the center and assist with important biblical education and edification for many visitors over the upcoming years. JD is a retired registered professional engineer, has a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Washington. He has also completed his Master of Biblical Studies in Biblical Creation Apologetics from the Master's Graduate School of Divinity. He was the Executive Director of the Institute for Creation Science that met monthly in Portland, Oregon, from 2005 through 2018. He does creation science research. He writes and speaks regarding the creation versus evolution controversy as a part of his creation science ministry. Creation Engineering Concepts is his, and there's a website that you can go to at creationengineeringconcepts.org. Okay. He is a member of Design Science Association and the Creation Research Society. JD has been studying the scientific and biblical evidence regarding the origins controversy since 1984, when he was converted from a theistic evolutionist to a born-again Christian. His free monthly email newsletter, CEC News, is designed to keep subscribers up to date on the latest news and articles regarding biblical creation apologetics and his ministry. His wife, Bonnie, assists him in his ministry. So, JD, come and fill us in on this new exhibit that's going to open soon.
All right, thank you very much, Steve. And it's my pleasure to be here. Welcome to my talk on the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum, scheduled for completion this year inside the existing Mount St. Helens Creation Center building in Castle Rock. The displays inside the new Dinosaur and Fossil Museum room at Mount St. Helens Creation Center are being donated by me and my wife Bonnie. They represent many years of collecting. Previously they were displayed at my personal museum in my home, and many can be seen in my book with the title Fossils, Description and Interpretation Within a Biblical Worldview. For those of you not familiar with the Mount St. Helens Creation Center, here's a location map, and you can see that we have I-5 going north and south there between Seattle and Portland. And if you want to go to the center, you need to take exit 49 and go right into downtown Castle Rock. And see where it's easy to find. Castle Rock's not a real big place. This is the exterior view of the center, located at 147 Front Avenue Northwest in downtown Castle Rock. Here's another exterior view of the center taken from a position right straight out onto the building. And this is an exterior view from the east end, where the new Dinosaur and Fossil Museum room is going to be built inside the building. I want you to understand one thing, and that is that while the plans I'm going to be describing to you are pretty precise and complete. The plans and designs in this presentation are as developed through this date, but they are subject to input by the Mount St. Helens Creation Center Board of Directors, so there could be a few changes. When you enter the Mount St. Helens Creation Center and you look to your right, you will look through the bookstore to the location where the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum is going to be located at the east end. If one goes to the left once you enter the building there are a large number of displays about the Mount St. Helens eruption and everything to do with that mountain and other creation topics. Here's a view looking east from inside the center where the new Dinosaur and Fossil Museum room is to be built. The overhead HVAC unit will be relocated so that there will be a consistent 12-foot ceiling height in this room. The center Recreation Center offices and restrooms are located to the left in this photo. If you've been to the building, you'll remember where they are. This is Pat Roy. He's standing in front of one of the existing Creation Center displays. And since coming on board recently last year at the center, Pat has made a number of impressive improvements to the Creation Center displays. This is Pat Roy's favorite photo with his wife and children. As with all of the displays currently at the Mount St. Helens Creation Center, the new displays for the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum will be based totally upon biblical interpretations. To display many of the fossils, replicas, and artifacts inside the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum, 12 of these 46-inch by 9-inch by 20-inch glass display cases will be used. These were all brand new fixtures. Here is the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum floor plan to scale. So museum visitors would enter the room here at this location, and the display cases are numbered 1 through 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's where the 12 display cases will be located within this brand new room in the Mount St. Helens Creation Center. There also will be additional displays at elevation as follows. So if you look in this corner, in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see that there's going to be an oviraptor display there. At B, we'll have a full-size Camarasaurus femur. At C, there's going to be Othnielia dinosaur leg and foot. So these displays are going to be located outside of the glass display cases, but they will be either mounted on the wall or at some other location other than in the display cases. We're going to have at location D a large 50-inch flat screen TV, which will have ongoing videos about various displays within the room. At location E, we will have a Triceratops horn display, and F will be a Brachiosaurus model dinosaur. As you look east at elevation, you're looking at the entry into the 5-foot wide arched entry door. You will see there mounted a Tyrannosaurus head and a Triceratops head mounted over the top of the entry. And there will also is planned a large mural, painted mural on the wall. There will be other signs as well that are descriptive with regard to what people will find inside of this room. As you stand at each of these 10 display cases that are mounted along the wall inside the room, you will see a number of signs that are at eye level. And there typically will be 6 of these interpretive signs. There'll be 2 18-inch by 24-inch signs, and then there'll be 4 18-inch by 12-inch signs. And these are interpretive signs that will interpret what we are showing within the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum. The wall signs are described this way. We have at the center top a sign that will have what's called the primary message. Down below that will be what we call a secondary message. And then the other four signs were what we would call auxiliary messages. The aluminum metal signs are attached to the wall by four fasteners that hold the signs out away from the wall by 3/4 of an inch. These are real nice, expensive signs, and I want you to know too that we're going to be taking advantage of the skills of a graphic designer to upgrade the plain message of the signs on the order of this auxiliary sample sign here. Now, of course, as an engineer, I'm pretty straightforward with regard to making messages. So you see the way I would put a sign together on the left-hand side there. That's JD's idea of a informative, interpretive sign. Well, here's what a graphic designer can do, and of course, as you can see that there's quite a bit of difference there, and we consider that to be quite an improvement. And we are wanting the signage in this museum to be as professional as possible, so we're going to put a large amount of effort into the signage. Next, I want to give you a look at some of the displays that will be in the 12 new glass display cases, along with the wording on the primary and the secondary wall signs at each of the sign locations. So as you walk through the room, as I showed you these 12 display cases, and so you can imagine at about waist level, you walk up to a display and you'll see one of these display cases, and then as you look up, you will see the 6 signs up above the display case mounted on the wall in the case of 10 of this display cases. 2 of them will be mounted in the middle of the room, and so they won't have wall signs, but they will have signage inside of the cases that will explain everything. So the way I determined the layout of the display cases was sort of a 2-step process. First, I laid the various artifacts, fossils, and replicas on a table I had in my garage, and I laid them out within this display case, how much space I had. And I laid out just sticky signs, for IDs and everything, didn't have an idea how much space they were going to take up. Well, then later, when we had the actual display cases available, the second step was to take and actually put them inside the display case. So the first display is called Creation versus Evolution. We'll call that display number 1. And here's what that display looks like after the displays, after the fossils, the replicas, artifacts were completed, and the interpretive and descriptive signs were completed as well, and actually put inside of the display case. So what we're looking at here is display number 1, Creation versus Evolution, and this is the left half of that display, and then here is the right-hand side of the display. So you can see what the finished displays would look like approximately. Now we're going to move on for each one of these displays, and I'm going to show you the signs so far as for some of these displays with regard to the primary sign and the secondary signs, but I won't be showing you the auxiliary signs. We don't have time for that this morning. Of course, we would want you to come to the display. There's a Dinosaur Fossil Museum when everything's completed, and then you'll be able to see everything the way it is. So for Creation versus Evolution, the primary sign reads, Creation versus Evolution Presuppositions. And you can see it, I'll read it, but you can read along with me. It says, evolutionists would like everyone to believe that the philosophy of evolution, that is naturalism or materialism, is science, and that creation science is religion. However, this is not true. Since history cannot be repeated, and since the only true historical source for the beginning is God's Word, both evolution and creation must be taken on faith. Neither creation science nor evolutionary origins theories are scientific in the technical sense. However, creation and evolution models can be tested to see which is most likely true. Both evolutionary and creationist scientists have exactly the same evidence. We must always remember that. Only the presuppositions, that is, the beginning assumptions, are different. Evolutionists and creationists use entirely different models based on their different presuppositions in order to interpret the evidence. Another way to say this is that evolutionists and creationists have different paradigms or worldviews that they apply to the evidence. For this reason, their conclusions are different. So that is the sign for the primary sign for display number 1. And here's the secondary sign, which is located just below it. And it's called laws of nature. In the last 400 years or so, man has discovered many laws which rule the natural universe. As each decade goes by, science discovers more and more about these laws and how intricately they all work together to allow the universe to exist and operate. These laws are found to reign in all aspects of every field of science that man has developed. In fact, if they did not exist, science could not exist. Specifically, scientists have discovered that life on Earth could not exist except for the clock-like coordination of many natural laws and constants. The question is, if everything randomly evolved from nothing over time, as evolutionists propose, with no intelligent input. Creationists believe that the laws of nature exist because God conceived, designed, and instituted them, and that he is currently upholding them. All this as described in the Bible. What do you think? Now, in display number 1, I'm going to show you a few instances of what you would find inside of display number 1 and the other displays. Here we see a replica of a cluster of 6 Mongolian dinosaur eggs. And originally these eggs were thought to be from the Protoceratops dinosaur, but they're now assigned to the Oviraptor dinosaur. And you might wonder, why can't they know what kind of egg it is? Well, it's very difficult to know how to connect trace fossils, which dinosaur eggs are, to the dinosaur that laid them due to the chaotic events at the time the dinosaurs were buried. And of course, as creationists, we know they were buried in the worldwide flood at the time of Noah. Also in display number 1 is a cast of a theropod dinosaur footprint. There are millions of dinosaur footprints that have been found in the sediments that cover Earth's surface. Dinosaur bones are seldom found in the same places as the tracks, so just like with the eggs, it's hard to tell which tracks correlate to which dinosaurs. You can see this track is about 12 inches square, so it's a good sized track. So we move on to display number 2, called rapid burial. And here is the initial layout I made for display number 2. And here is the completed left-hand side for display number 2, rapid burial. And then we move over to the right-hand side, and this is what we see. Okay, for rapid burial, we have the primary sign reading how fossils were formed. It is very important to remember that fossils are clues to the past, but they exist in the present, not in the past. Therefore, any information concerning the fossils in the rock record is an interpretation and not necessarily an historical fact. Creationist and evolutionist scientists are in agreement that for fossilization to occur, rapid burial, usually by waterborne sediment, is required. Evolutionists believe the fossilization process was accomplished by the actions of lakes, swamps, rivers, and seas over long eons of time. Creationists, on the other hand, believe that most fossils are the result of the cataclysmic worldwide flood described in the book of Genesis, and which was sent by God as a judgment for the evil acts of men some 4,500 years ago. For display number 2, the secondary sign reads sedimentary layers and the geologic column. Most fossils are found in sedimentary rock layers which have been laid down by water all over the earth. Creationists believe that most of these layers were laid down in a complex manner during the year-long cataclysmic Genesis flood about 4,500 years ago. The geologic column was first proposed by uniformitarian, that is, the present is the key to the past, theorists, in the late 1700s and early 1800s in England and France. The geologic column is theoretical and is really a mental abstraction. It was primarily promoted by atheists and deists as an attempt to refute the Genesis historical record and to develop an old age explanation for the Earth. Evolutionists believe, based on their secular presuppositions, that the geologic column is a time scale for the formation of the sedimentary layers over millions of years, as well as a record of the macroevolution of life from simple common ancestors. After considering all the evidence and the two models, what do you believe? Is a complete Edmontosaurus vertebrate replica. On the right-hand side of this slide is an actual fossil of an Edmontosaurus vertebra. It is missing the neural spine and transverse processes, but notice it includes a portion of the spinal cord. Now, it makes sense that this real fossil could only be the result of rapid burial conditions such as we can imagine were present in the global flood at the time of Noah. Here we see a fossil fish frozen in the act of eating another fish. This could only be the result of rapid burial during Noah's flood and not a slow process, as attempted to be explained by secular scientists. If you go to a secular museum, you will see these types of fossils displayed, and the explanation will be that one fish gulped into another fish, and that fish then was aspirated, that fish suffocated and slowly floated to the bottom of the water and was of the ocean or whatever the body of water was, and then was fossilized by a slow process. Well, anybody who knows anything about fish knows that fish do not slowly, after they die, they don't slowly float to the bottom of the lake. They float on the top of the lake. And that if they do end up on the bottom of the lake, they're all consumed. So we know that this is a tremendous evidence for the worldwide flood. And this is another one of those evidences. This is a fossil remains from Wyoming of an exploded fish. This is very strong evidence that these fish remains were rapidly buried and supports the biblical creationist worldview. That at one instance you have a fish that is blown up due to an interior gas situation, and the next instant it has been frozen in time. Now we move on to display number 3, which is called What is Homology? This is the mock-up for the display number 3. And here is the completed display number 3 on the left-hand side with all of the signage. And here's a completed right-hand side. So now let's move to the primary sign for what is homology. And this sign reads, what is homology? And it says different animals have similar skeletal structures. For example, the horse, the dog, the tiger, and the lion all have similar skeletal constructions. Creationists would postulate that this is due to a common engineer, God, using similar engineering in different life forms for similar functions. Homology is the study of similarities in life forms. Evolutionists believe that homology proves evolution from ancient ancestors. For example, evolutionists would postulate that the wings of a bat, the flippers of a dolphin, and the arms of a man that are homologous organs have all evolved from the paired pectoral fins of a fish ancestor. This evolutionary view, however, is not science. It is philosophy based on presuppositions. See the panel at the upper left of this display for more on evolutionary presuppositions. Scientists using homology in order to support evolutionary hypotheses regarding dinosaurs and other extinct life forms are at a distinct disadvantage compared to those who study current existing life forms. This is because the fossil record for the most part consists only of hard parts like skulls, bones, teeth, and claws. It is difficult to make comparisons when you don't have what the animal's being actually look like. In other words, when you're looking at a fossil, you're seeing these hard parts. When you're looking at a live animal, you know all what the interior parts work and you know how complex they are. Paleontologists are at a distinct disadvantage, and so a lot of their conclusions are based upon their presuppositions, not on actual science. Display number 3, secondary sign, is called common ancestor or common engineer. The fossil record does not provide any evidence of transitional forms. If evolution were true, there should be literally millions of these transitional forms in the rock record. What the rock record shows is instead is stasis and abrupt appearance of life forms. This is exactly opposite of what the evolution model would predict. But stasis, that is, no changes seen in the fossil kinds, and abrupt appearance of these fossilized kinds in the rock record are exactly what the creation model predicts. Creationists argue that the reason transitional forms are not found is simply because they never existed. Thus, the evidence from the fossil record points toward a common engineer, not common ancestors. Accordingly, the creation looks to be engineered, not evolved. What do you think? These are fossil Hydrophilus water beetles from the Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. The high concentration of fossilized water beetles, like water beetles of today, at this location can be interpreted as the result of a massive water catastrophe. These are Edmontosaurus dinosaur toe bones, and they might be from the same individual. Without having the entire articulated skeleton of a dinosaur, it is not possible to determine the details of an animal's anatomy with certainty. Very few of the fossils that are found of dinosaurs, for example, are of articulated animals, that is, where they're all complete and together. Mostly they're disarticulated. So there's a lot of guesswork that goes on. Now we move to display number 4, called Dinosaurs in the Fossil Record. Here's the mock-up for this display. And here's the completed display number 4, the left-hand side, with all the signage and everything located in place. And this is the completed right-hand side of display number 4. The primary sign for display number 4, called Skulls, Bones, Teeth, and Claws, says mostly what we find of dinosaur and other vertebrate remains are skulls, bones, teeth, and claws. Usually the fossilized remains consist of just the original hard parts, since the softer parts quickly rot away or are devoured by microorganisms after death. In addition, the bones are seldom articulated, as I just mentioned, that is, connected together, and are instead usually disarticulated, pulled apart. Most dinosaur finds consist of only small portions of any one animal, and so paleontologists must play detective to try to determine how the animal was originally put together. Most museum reconstructed dinosaur skeletons actually consist of the bones from numerous specimens and/or casts of these bones. So disarticulated, separated, broken, and mixed together hard parts are the norm. What does this indicate about how dinosaurs were killed and fossilized? I would recommend that you think catastrophe. See the side panels for more on disarticulated dinosaurs and dinosaur bone jumbles. The secondary sign for display number 4 reads, so no transitional fossil forms. If evolution from single-celled organisms to man were to have happened, then there would have had to have been some very major macroevolutionary transitional jumps, such as microorganisms to fish, fish to amphibians, amphibians to reptiles, reptiles to mammals, and apes to humans. The fossils in the rock record do not provide any evidence of these transitions excepting in the minds of evolutionists. The only transitions presented in the evolutionary literature are imaginary, and the proposed transitions must jump huge discontinuities, such as the one shown in the illustration above. To creationists, it is unimaginable that an amphibian leg could ever naturally evolve from a fish fin. In the process, the organ would become useless, and the animal would die, not evolve. These are all replica teeth from display number 4, and they're of tyrant bipedal created dinosaur kind, like T-Rex. I found that the teeth are very similar between numerous genera for this kind of dinosaur. This does not indicate a common ancestor, but more likely a common designer for the teeth. Because claws are made of a harder material, they are fairly common fossils found in the rock record. This is a very large dinosaur raptor claw that must be from what was a very large dinosaur. Thus the name Megaraptor for this dinosaur. Here's a mock-up for display number 5. Dinosaur Taxonomy. And here's the completed display number 5, left-hand side with all the signage and everything laid out. And here we move to the right-hand side. Here's the primary sign for display number 5, Dinosaur Taxonomy, how they are classified. In the traditional method for classifying the dinosaurs, there are two basic categories. One category includes the Saurischians with lizard-like hip structures, and the other the Ornithischians with bird-like hips. Look at the panels to the left and right for more information on dinosaur genus names according to these hip structures. It is interesting that these evolutionist scientists those evolutionist scientists who promote the idea that dinosaurs evolved into birds believe that the birds evolved from theropod dinosaurs. Notice that the theropods have lizard-like hips and not bird-like hips. I always find that very interesting. The Bible states that birds were created on day 5 before the land animals that were created on day 6. You can read that in Genesis chapter 1, verses 20 through 25. If the Bible is God's word and God does not lie or cannot lie, then birds could not have come into existence after land animals. Creationists believe the Bible is true and that true scientific evidence supports its teaching. Here's the secondary sign for display number 5, Dinosaur Taxonomy, and it reads, Dinosaurs, how big were they? Some dinosaurs were very large indeed. We know this from some of the huge fossil bones that have been found all over the earth. The panel to the left statistically compares some of what are thought to be adult dinosaurs found in the rock record so far. Dinosaur experts believe that dinosaurs developed from hard-shelled eggs the size of footballs or smaller. And since it is difficult to know the age of dinosaurs from their bones alone, some dinosaur remains are undoubtedly from young dinosaurs. We also know from the bones found that some adult dinosaurs were quite small, even as small as a chicken. It is thought that the average adult dinosaur was about the size of a bison. Here we see a considerable size variation for 3 different kinds of dinosaur toe claws. That variation was translated into the sizes of the dinosaur bodies as well. So we see here a large dinosaur claw and a medium-sized dinosaur claw and a smaller dinosaur claw. So we know that the claws help us determine how big the dinosaurs were, and there was quite a bit of variation in size. Here we see normal Allosaurus radius bone at the bottom and a sort of a disease or some sort of an injury. The dinosaur with the bone above suffered some sort of a broken bone that eventually healed. Now we can know from our experience with other vertebrate animals in the present that that was probably a time of large suffering for that dinosaur. And we can also know that according to the presupposition of creationism and the historical Bible, that all of this likely happened sometime before the onset of the flood that buried the dinosaur that had the callus growing around the center of the break. Let's move now to display number 6. What did dinosaurs look like? Here you see the mock-up, and here we have the completed number 6 display. What did dinosaurs look like on the left-hand side? And here's the right-hand side. Let's look at the primary sign. What did dinosaurs look like? I cannot stress too much that what we know about dinosaurs comes mostly from fossilized skulls, bones, teeth, and claws, the hard parts of the animals, which are more likely to be preserved. The illustrations and models we see of living dinosaurs are largely generated by the imaginations of those who attempt to reconstruct them. The recent depictions of multicolored exteriors come from the evolutionary belief that dinosaurs and birds are related. In reality, no way has yet been perfected to determine the skin color of various kinds of dinosaurs. However, some fossils are found that do provide information about what the dinosaurs look like. While not providing original colors, skin impressions and mummified parts are occasionally found that tell us what the exterior surfaces of dinosaurs look like. The evolutionary hypothesis that dinosaurs evolved into birds is not supported by the fossil evidence. In addition, the Bible clearly tells us that birds were created on day 5 ahead of the dinosaurs on day 6. Here's a secondary sign that displays 6. What did dinosaurs look like? It's called How Many Kinds of Dinosaurs? Some evolutionary experts believe that there were over 1,000 different kinds of dinosaurs. However, creationist experts would like to say that there are many fewer kinds of created dinosaurs. Research that J.D. Mitchell, did resulted in the conclusion that there were likely only 15 created kinds of dinosaurs found in North American sedimentary layers. Look at the 1/10 scale model skulls of the 3 horn-faced dinosaurs in the image and in the display below. Note the similarities so far as their parrot-like beaks, jaw construction, teeth, and other aspects of their skulls. Did you know that the postcranial skeletons of these animals are nearly identical? Do you see how these facts could indicate that the variability in skulls could be as a result of age, accident, disease, and or their sex? Creationists believe horn-faced dinosaurs are just one created kind of dinosaur, not 13 or 14, as the evolutionists would say. Here's one of my favorite dinosaur fossils that my wife Bonnie and I dug up from the sediments in Montana. It is a rib section of a horn-faced kind of dinosaur, probably a Triceratops. Dinosaurs had a particular design for the connection of their heads to their bodies. It is called an occipital condyle. This is a ball and socket type of a connection. Here is the fossil of a ball from a Triceratops. As you can see, it's about 3 or 4 inches in diameter. And it's interesting that many of man's inventions for various machines incorporates this ball and socket design. Mechanical engineers use all kinds of different things that have balls and sockets on them. And this was copied from what God had engineered for the dinosaurs. This particular ball and socket, occipital condyle, is seen in the dinosaurs, but humans don't have the same way. We can't turn our heads the way that a dinosaur could have. This is the mock-up as we move to display number 7, called Dinosaurs and Humans Together. And here's a completed left-hand side of this display number 7. And here's a displayed right-hand side. Here's the primary sign, Dinosaurs and Humans Together. The King James Bible describes in at least 25 instances animals called dragons. The word dinosaur was not coined until 1841, some 230 years after the King James Bible was first translated into English. That is why the word dinosaur is not found in the Bible. Ancient and not so ancient records and traditions are filled with references to dragons. It seems clear from written history that dinosaurs were fairly common all over the earth, perhaps as late as 1500 AD, just 500 years ago. These evidences are strong indicators that dragons were dinosaurs. Most depictions of dragons look much like how we envision that dinosaurs looked as interpreted from their fossil remains. The creationist model would predict that dinosaur kinds after the flood would have been smaller and fewer in number because of shorter lifespans after the flood, as for men as well. Less plentiful plant life would be available, and more extreme living conditions were of the times after the flood. In addition, man would have been a formidable enemy of dinosaurs. To man, the dinosaur would have been a beast to chase from his areas of habitation and to kill whenever possible, as described in the story of George and the Dragon, for example. And here's a secondary sign at display number 7. Was Behemoth a dinosaur? In Job chapter 40, verses 15 through 90, we read, Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength he has in his loins, what power in the muscles of his belly. His tail swings like a cedar, the sinews of his thighs are close knit. His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like rods of iron. He ranks first among the works of God, yet his maker can approach him with his sword. Most creationists believe that this is a description of a sauropod dinosaur. Study Bible notes often say that it is a description of an elephant or a hippopotamus. Logically, it seems clear that it is not the description of an elephant or a hippo. This is because none of the unique identifying features or characteristics of the elephant or the hippopotamus are listed in the description for the behemoth in the book of Job. Neither animal has a tail like a cedar tree. In addition, if we look at an elephant, we would want to use descriptors such as large feet, huge ears, versatile trunk, large tusks. If we were going to describe a hippo, we'd probably say huge mouth, pink sweat, deadly tusks, thick skin. And so that describing a behemoth as being a hippo or an elephant just does not make any sense at all. Let's move on to a few of the displays in number 7, humans and dinosaurs together. In the next chapter, after chapter 40 in Job, we go to chapter 41, of course, in the book of Job, and God describes an animal by the name of Leviathan. And I would promote the idea that scutes such as this one here, this scute is 5.5 inches wide, 6 1/8 inches long, and 1.5 inches thick. And it is a fossilized scute from what is called the Sarcosuchus. And I think a cover of these scutes would have been impenetrable by the spears of men, as stated in the Bible in Job 41. Some of these scutes have been found that are up to 12 inches square and 1.5 inches thick. You can imagine that if a man tried to throw a spear through that, he would have great difficulty. And of course, when we look at Job 41, God describes Leviathan in great detail. And I believe that the Sarcosuchus is the animal that comes the closest to matching that description. Many ecostones like these have been found discovered in Peru. Some show men and dinosaurs together, as this one does. There are scores of other evidences and out-of-place artifacts that have been found that support the Bible narrative that says man and dinosaurs lived together. This is the number 8 mock-up. It's called Fossil Prep in the Lab. And the artifacts in this display focus primarily on mammal and mosasaur fossils. This is the completed number 8 left-hand side, and the completed number 9. The completed right hand for number 8. And we move to the primary sign for fossil prep in the lab. Fossils like some of the mammal and mosasaur fossils in this display case below must be prepped in the lab after they have been retrieved in the field from the sediments in which they were entombed. For centuries, these, of course, we believe that there were a lot of centuries, but not millions of years. This process allows for the study and or display of the fossils. The photos in this panel shows the steps that took place in the preparations of the Oreodont skull that is inside the case below. This Oreodont skull was discovered in the White River Badlands Formation of South Dakota. The assigned genus name for this extinct mammal is Mericoidodon. Numerous other extant and extinct mammal fossils have been found in this formation that covers much of South Dakota and Nebraska. Many of the same types of mammal fossils have been discovered in the John Day fossil beds that are located in Central Oregon, although the quantity and quality of the Oregon fossils do not compare to those of the White River Badlands. Secondary sign for display number 8, laws of thermodynamics. The first law reads, energy can be converted from one form to another, but can neither be created nor destroyed. Consequently, energy must have been created in the past by some agency or power outside of and independent of the natural universe. Atheistic evolutionists have no idea who or what this could be. Creationists know we know this to be the creator God of the Bible. The second law of thermodynamics. All systems will tend toward the most mathematically probable state and will eventually become totally random and disorganized. That is, tend toward increasing entropy. Many people have unsuccessfully Many people have unsuccessfully tried to invent perpetual motion machines and other devices that violate the laws of thermodynamics. The tendency in nature is downward, not upward, as is supposed by evolutionary philosophy. You can see in those two pictures there, the left one is what evolution would need, is for things to continue to improve and be more orderly. In nature, we know it's exactly the opposite. I prepared this fossil mammal skull myself from a glob of rock, bones, and teeth from the South Dakota Badlands. There are two primary reasons to do this work. The one is to learn about the life form that has been buried in the mud, this for 4,500 years or so. And the other one is, the second reason we do this is to prepare the fossils for display. Mosasaurs are extinct marine reptiles noted for large, sharp teeth. But there was one kind of a mosasaur that had teeth that looked to have been designed to allow for the consumption of shellfish. Some amazing globidans fossil teeth from Morocco are seen here. So globidans was a particular genus of mosasaur, and unlike almost all the other genus that I know, all the other genera I know, it had knobs on the end of its teeth instead of sharp teeth. And so logically, it probably had its diet probably consisted of shellfish. That would be the assumption. Let's move now to display number 9, called Flyers or Not. This is the mock-up. Here's the left-hand completed left side for number 9, and here's the right-hand side. And here is the primary sign. Flyers or not, dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and Archaeopteryx. When fossil evidence is discovered in the rock record, it sometimes takes decades or longer for the experts to come to a conclusion regarding the proper description for what has been found. This is the case for Archaeopteryx, often described as the world's most famous fossil. Even today, evolutionists cannot agree on whether Archaeopteryx is a bird, a dinosaur, or a transitional form between dinosaurs and birds. Most public school biology textbooks still identify Archaeopteryx as a transitional fossil, even though true science has not proven such a thing has ever been found anywhere in the rock record. Creationists argue over whether it is a bird, a dinosaur, a mosaic, or a fraud. Pterosaurs were definitely flyers as well as great gliders. However, in the past, fossils of these flying reptiles have been misidentified as being birds, small dinosaurs, and Archaeopteryx. This is largely due to the similarity between the bones of these lightly built creatures. This display only touches on some of the Archaeopteryx controversy. For more on this, see my book, Fossils, Description, and Interpretation, and or go to my informational website, www.creationengineeringconcepts.org. Now, the secondary sign for display number 9 is not actually a sign, but it's a wall-mounted replica of the most famous fossil in the world, the Berlin specimen of Archaeopteryx. The technical name for the wishbone is the furcula, and we all know that many birds have wishbones or furculas, but some dinosaurs had wishbones too. These are the fossil replica wishbones for the tyrant bipedal dinosaur kinds of dinosaurs. The upper one is a Tyrannosaurus, the lower one is the Allosaurus. Now, no one believes that T-Rex could fly, so a furcula is not a component that can be used to determine flight ability. And now, since an Archaeopteryx has a furcula, many evolutionists said that proves that it was a flyer. Well, if we're going to use that as an evidence, then T-Rex must have flown too, right? No, wrong. I like this display of skulls because it shows to full scale the great similarity between the Velociraptor, in the upper skull is a Velociraptor, and the lower one is an Archaeopteryx skull, and these are to scale. Now, is one a bird and the other a dinosaur? Are they both dinosaurs? Or is there some other explanation? That is the question that evolutionists and creationists are still pondering. Here we move to display number 10, called Living Fossils. This is mock-up number 10. Every example in this display is of a living fossil. This is the completed number 10, left-hand side, with all the signage. And this is the completed number 10, right-hand side. And here's the primary sign for living fossils. According to evolutionary theories, today's life forms have evolved from simpler types called common ancestors over many millions of years. Very often, however, life forms that were interpreted to be extinct ancestral forms in the fossils of the rock record are found alive and well. There's little or no discernible difference between the living form and the fossil form. When this occurs, the fossil life form is renamed as a living fossil. There are many hundreds of organisms that have been identified as living fossils. Some famous examples of living fossils are the coelacanth fish, the Don redwood tree, the ginkgo tree, the crocodile, the horseshoe crab, and the Neoplena mollusk. All of the examples in the display case below are living fossils. Evolutionists can provide no clear explanation for why living fossils even exist within their paradigm. Creationists, with their biblical understanding that all organisms were created only about 6,000 years ago, understand that living fossils simply represent life that has survived relatively unchanged for a few thousand years, not millions or billions. Here's the secondary sign for display number 10, design or chance plus time. Everyone knows from common sense and day-to-day experience how to tell designed objects from objects that have their shape and look due to chance interaction with the inner environment. And living things not only look designed, but they look engineered. Regarding simple design, it is easy to tell an arrowhead that's designed by a man from a random rock shaped by the random actions of water, wind, and earth movements. Life is extremely complex and appears to have been precisely engineered. Evolutionists will admit that life forms look to be designed, however, they stick to their refrain that it came to be due to the random chance interaction of matter over long eons of time. They are forced to take this position by their adherence to the philosophy of atheistic naturalism. Here are two Cenoceros fossils. One is sliced and the other is whole. They are identical in every discernible aspect to the living chambered Nautilus. So that's what they are. They're fossilized chambered Nautilus. And there's absolutely no credible evidence that chambered Nautilus evolved from ammonites, which is what many evolutionists want to tell you. There are many differences between an ammonite and a chambered Nautilus. This is a favorite living fossil for many people, the horseshoe crab, due to the number of these critters that can show up on various beaches around the world at certain times of the year. Again, there's no discernible difference between the fossil and the living. There's good evidence that there is no 140 million year span between the living and the fossil. I like the ginkgo biloba tree living fossil because we have a tree in our backyard, which makes it easy for me to compare the living and the fossil leaves. The modern leaves are always nearly identical to the fossil. This is display number 11, the mock-up for trilobites. This display is 100% trilobites. You do not pronounce this trilobite, you pronounce it trilobite. And the reason is that a trilobite has 3 lobes, and that's why we call it tri for 3 lobes, trilobite. I know I've heard a lot of people say trilobite, but the proper pronunciation is trilobite. This is a completed number 11 left-hand side, where you can see all of the descriptors and the identification. And here's the right-hand side. I especially like the Nankinolithus trilobite due to its delicate perforated head shield or fringe. No one knows for sure the purpose of this fringe, but there, as with a lot of other fossils, there are lots of unknown things, lots of things we have yet to learn. Eldredgia is the most common trilobite found in South America. This particular positive and negative specimen was found in La Paz, Bolivia, at an altitude of over 10,000 feet. Fossils at this elevation confirm the worldwide flood did indeed cover all of the mountains as the Bible tells us. This is the Asifus trilobite from Russia with amazing eye stalks. I wonder if it buried itself in the sand with only its eyes above the sand level. This is the final display that is display number 12 called Ammonites. This display is 100% ammonites. And here's the completed number 12 left-hand side. And here's the completed number 12 right-hand side. Now, as I mentioned, there are no wall signs for the displays 11 and 12 because they're located in the center of the room. However, each of the display will have signs that will identify each of the specimen. Many of these Dactyloceras ammonites have been found in Europe. Some of these fossils found in England you can still buy them that had heads carved on them at the upper part. And then they sell them to unsuspecting tourists as being fossilized coiled snakes. There are lots of these Dactyloceras available. None of them come with heads on them, but people like to sell them, like to carve the heads on them, and then they get more money for them that way, I guess. These small fossils are called aptychi, and are thought to be either ammonite jaws or doors for closing off the mouths of the ammonites. You can see how small they are. These are quite uncommon, but this is a true fossil, and it's smaller than the size of a penny. On the other end of the scale, this is Cambripalis fossil trilobite from Africa, and it's the largest one in the Dinosaur Fossil Museum collection, and it's almost a foot long. Trilobite genera are thought to vary as adults in the size from the size of a wheat seed to as large as 6 feet long. So there's a tremendous size difference in full-grown ammonites. So now I have shown you examples of all the displays at the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum, but these are only a small portion of what you will see there. I hope you've gotten a taste for what you would see there. Remember, I've only described a small amount. There's some 226 replicas, fossils, and artifacts currently laid out to be put in this and to be on the display in the Mount St. Helens Creation Center, and this is planned for later this year. If you would like to help with the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum room, there is a GoFundMe page set up. Just go to the GoFundMe Mount St. Helens Creation Center, and you'll find the web page there where you can go and donate. Now, we are planning to stop the Dinosaur and Fossil Room fundraising later today. Today's the last day for this GoFundMe page, and the actual room construction is scheduled to begin March 15th. Now, again, notice the plans and design in this presentation are as developed through the state, but are subject to input by the Mount St. Helens Creation Center Board of Directors. For more information about dinosaurs and fossils, I offer my book, The Creation Dialogues, and this has lots of information on dinosaurs and fossils, but it also has lots of information on worldview issues, especially how we can fight the ongoing attack of theistic evolutionists on biblical Christians. This is the second edition of this title, and I believe that actually biblical Christians have more of a fear of liberal Christians than they do of atheists. Theistic evolutionists cause more problems than atheists do, in my experience. So this book, which is only $12, gives you lots of information on that topic of worldview. For more information about fossils found in Central Oregon, you may like my hardcover book, Discovering the Animals of Ancient Oregon. It's $25. The Guidebook to North American Dinosaurs According to Created Kinds is my book published with a creation perspective and with specific information with regard to the kinds of dinosaurs that were created and dinosaurs in general. It is $15. And here's the second edition of my dinosaur book for the younger set. This is a coloring and activity book based on the regular book, Dinosaurs, Guidebook to North American Dinosaurs According to Created Kinds. It's $4. And here's fossils description and interpretation within a biblical worldview. It is still the only creationist book of its type with up-to-date information on all kinds of fossils, including those of the dinosaurs, and most, but not all, of the dinosaur fossils you will find in the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum are in this book, along with a lot of others. It is $19. And you can get my Dinosaur and Fossil 3-book pack for only $39, a savings of $7 over the separate book prices. All these books and more are available from my website, www.creationengineeringconcepts.org. And here again is the website address. Now, I know some people prefer not to purchase over the internet, And if you are one of those people, then all you have to do is email me at creationengcon@aol.com, and we can arrange some other way for getting the resources that I have on the website to you. I have hundreds of resources on there, but if you don't like to buy online, just email me and we'll arrange some other way to get the books to you. And the DVD, whatever else that you're interested in. So that's the end of my talk this morning. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to see you all later this year at the Mount St. Helens Creation Center when the Dinosaur Fossil Museum will be complete and open for touring. Here again is a map for how you can find your way to the Mount St. Helens Creation Center and the Dinosaur and Fossil Museum. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, JD. That was very informative, interesting, and I am looking forward to going up and actually seeing this display for myself